Welcome to the Specialty Cropcast on Pomes and Stones. Join us for real conversations with farmers, agribusiness owners, and industry experts as we dive into farming, products, and the business of agriculture, all from the people who know it best.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome.
What's
up, Talon?
We're here in the studio, the very first time, and boy, has it been a hassle getting this figured out. I'll tell you that, guys. Holy cow!
Yeah, what, we were supposed to be ready to go by 7:30?
7:30, 8 o'clock. We were supposed to be doing this, and
It's
we are
only
now
9:15.
starting at 9:15.
It's only 9:50.
That's all right. We're working through it, guys. So we're going to welcome you guys here to the very first episode of the Specialty Cropcast with myself, Talon from Pomes and Stones, as well as Steve here, and then we have Zach in the corner in the hoodie. What we're going to do is kind of just introduce you guys to us and kind of how we all got started in agriculture and how we ended up here at this table. So I think we're going to start with Steve. Steve, are you ready?
Yeah. Yep.
Fire away.
'Kay.
So how'd you end up in agriculture? Because your family has a good background
Right.
in building.
Correct. But, when I was a kid, my dad was working on a farm in Leelanau, I think actually when I was born. And then he ended up working in another farm north of Elk Rapids. And so ag things like that have always been in my family. Then my first job was working for Nagy Orchards, picking rocks when I was about 12 years old. And worked there until I was 18. Then I left for the Marine Corps and did 4 years there. Came back, went back to Nagy Farms. So, just been working farms ever since. And now I'm married into another farm. And,
And now you're working for Wilbur Ellis.
Correct. Yep.
And that's been for how long?
Oh, boy. This would be my 8th year, 9th. 9th.
Wow, a bit of a seasoned vet here at Wilbur Ellis.
Wilbur Ellis Acme.
We'll move across the table here to Zach Amos. Here, tell us a little bit about your farm experience, how you got started.
Pretty short and simple, Talon.
Okay.
I'm born and raised into it. 38 years.
That's the best. That is the best. So if I'm not mistaken, you guys were in high school together, is that right?
Yep.
Which is funny because I always pictured Steven being much older than Zach for some reason. I don't know.
It's messed up.
I just don't know maybe it's the salt and pepper beard.
Could be.
I don't know what it
could
is.
be.
I don't know what it is. So I guess now we could go buzz into a little bit of our interpersonal relationships and how do we know each other, right? How do we get here?
Wait, we
at
didn't
this
hear
table?
about
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Come
Me.
on.
Okay, so I have been working at Cherry Key for, I think it's 16 years now. I started in 2009. Is my math check out? Quick math.
Yep.
I'm not the math guy. Someone will figure that out.
This
quick
would
if
be
you've been
your
watching Pomes and
16th year.
Stones.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's how I got started. Started skimming tanks and started at the bottom and worked my way to
To the top.
to aggressively average in the middle. Definitely not the top by any means, but that's how I got started. And I started skimming tanks and running the equipment, working at receiving, and now kind of supervising the
What
night
made you
shift.
pick
and-
Cherokee?
Oh, what made me pick Cherokee? I just love the red buses going up and down the road, just hogging up traffic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's how I got into this. And then I kind of just, Pomes and Stones, I guess we can buzz into that quick. So I started a YouTube channel almost a year ago now, April 26th was the first video I posted. And I just kind of wanted to shine a little bigger light on the specialty crops here in Michigan and just show the day-to-day life of a farmer here in Michigan. So, and that's really taken me to some places here, especially ended up right at this table on a Saturday night with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, and your videos have been getting a lot of views.
yeah,
Not just nationwide, but, right?
worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide.
Worldwide
Where's
popular
the,
life.
where's the farthest person from?
Oh, I've had South Asia. There's a
Wow.
guy who
Okay.
watches all the time there. Yep, comments on all the stuff. He's great. His name's Goldfish online, which is
Interesting.
pretty irrelevant for this, but so
They
I
have
guess now
goldfish in
let's-
South Asia? Must.
I think it's a pretty popular thing,
Oh,
goldfish.
I didn't.
A lot of carnivals, a lot of carnies.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about how I know you guys. So I've known Steve for a while now, even before I started really getting into kind of going to these orchard shows and even going to the great breakfasts that Wilbur Ellis supplies for us weekly.
Yes.
And I grew up playing basketball with you for the most part. That's how I knew you to start.
Yep.
Was playing ball. And then what's a great story is the first time that I actually interacted with Steve, Tom said, hey, you got to go unload a whole semi-load of sulfur, of microthiol. And of course, so I was like, wow, I can't.
Oh, you were low, man. You got to run the pallet jack, probably, didn't you?
No, I
No.
think actually Steve was running. I was running the high-low and Tom was just watching.
I was just watching with Tom.
Oh.
There was the
the
truck driver.
Yeah, the driver was.
Oh, man, the boss had to unload it while you just sat on the forklift?
Yeah. So, dude, come on. So I start unloading it, and if anyone knows anything about microthiol, the way that they stack the pallets, they're very wide at the bottom, and as they kind of get to the top, they like to throw like what are they usually wide? Six bags? 5 bags? Usually 5 bags, right?
I think they're
3 one way,
8.
2 the other.
I
Oh,
think
they're
it's
8. They're 4 and
8.
4.
Yeah.
But as they get to the top, they like to throw like a 2 or 3 on the top, depending on how you build your order out. So I'm, doing a great job unloading 3/4 of the truck, and it gets to the end, and I'm like, wow, I'm kind of running out of a little bit of space here. So I was like, I'm going to start double stacking these. And of course, I get 3/4 of the way through, and I'm like, wow, this is going pretty well. I'm not having any issues. And I set one on top, and as I start to pull the forklift out, the forks out of the pallet, it tips forward, and there was no getting it back. I tried jabbing it. I ripped the bags. There's sulfur spilling everywhere, and then it tips all the way over and falls back onto the other pallets. And I hear some profanity from the front of the barn, and it says, you're going to come back and pick those fuckers up later.
Yeah.
How mad was Tom?
He wasn't really that mad.
I'd give
He
him
was just
2 out of 10.
very disappointed.
Very disappointed.
It was more the disappointment that really did it.
As my first impression, yeah, I was shocked that they were allowing you to run that forklift.
I'm a licensed
Was he
operator.
forklift
Yes,
certified?
exactly.
I don't think so. There's no way he passed the test.
That was a tough one because I was really trying to make a good impression because it was my first time
Right.
working with Steve outside of the
And we were so
basketball.
competitive in basketball.
Oh yeah, I remember giving
We were
you
always guarding each other.
Oh.
Yeah.
high intensity.
Yep.
High intensity.
Yep.
So Zach,
How do I know Talon?
how do you know me? Let's swing it to you.
Ooh, family Christmas was probably the first time we met, wasn't it?
Was it a good impression?
Well, you're still on Grandma's refrigerator.
Oh, it's good then. Still in. Or is it either that or wrestling your cousin in the snow in the UP?
Yeah. Yeah.
Over Wii bowling, in fact. He was very upset that I was
Which
being
cousin?
too cocky. I was like 15.
Which cousin?
Chris.
Yep.
We were doing Wii bowling, and I was on a bit of a heater
Yes.
at about 14. And he took offense to my skills. And we took it to the front yard.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
wow.
That's what I was trying to figure out. How long have I known you? So if you said you were
Oh,
14,
yeah, I was.
I knew you before then.
Yeah. I think I first started coming around I had to have been going into 8th grade. Yeah. So
Really?
it was probably 7th grade. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit. That's quite a bit.
Still on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is
Yep.
crazy. So actually,
Me and Zach,
yeah, you guys.
yeah, we go way back as well.
Well, yeah, because you guys were in high school.
I remember we were on Gus Macker basketball team together in middle school.
Gus
7th
Smacker.
and 8th grade undefeated football
Yep.
2 years in a row.
Yep, 7th and 8th grade.
Eight-
Then we got to
eight
high
man
school
or-
and got our butts
No,
kicked.
it was 12.
It was, I mean, we
12
didn't get our
man.
butts kicked, but
No, we did.
yeah. It got,
Let's be honest here,
Yeah.
guys. Let's be honest.
yeah. Yeah. No, it was,
But 7th and 8th grade.
yeah, I've known
undefeated.
Zach since I moved here in middle school, 7th grade.
Yeah.
So,
You guys are the same grade too.
Yeah.
Not only in high school together, but the
Yep.
same exact age. Wow.
Yep.
That's actually
You came
surprising.
in 7th grade or 6th
Yeah.
grade?
nope, the summer before 7th grade.
Okay.
Moved here.
Where were you
Yep.
before that?
Well, I was born in Northport,
Oh,
and then we moved to Rapid River when I was like 5 or 6 up in the UP. And then we're like, we need to get closer to the family because the grandparents are getting older. So, and they all lived in Elk Rapids.
oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So we were just talking about microthiol a second ago, which is a brand of sulfur for those of you who don't know. And Steve just recently had quite the experience
Yes.
with the delivery.
Yes.
The first delivery of the
it
year.
was
in fact.
Wednesday last year. Yeah.
Last year.
Or, I mean, last week.
It was quite the memory a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite the memory.
Yeah. Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
So, 7:30 in the morning, I'm sitting down earlier this week, and Tom Coronado texted me and said, "Hey, there's a truck at your warehouse." I was like, "Huh. Well, it's probably something that you ordered, but I will go check it out." Got up here. It was microtile. And so the truck driver followed me over to one of Cherokee's farms there, and we got it all unloaded. But I was talking to the driver. He had picked the load up in New York, and the day before he picked it up in the morning, and he went to an address in Tennessee, and it was the wrong address. So then he got it right, came all the way up here, was sitting here Wednesday morning.
Were the numbers right? Or were they all wrong too? Like the house number?
On the what?
You said the address was wrong.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the house
No,
number
his,
right and just
yeah,
completely
I
different
think
state?
he
Like Rock
put,
City.
I think he put like 8075, which is the address here, in his thing, and probably clicked the first address that came up.
Was there a Wilbur address close by? Or he
No,
showed
no,
up into
no, there's
like
not even a
suburbia
Wilbur.
Tennessee. And
There's
was
no
like, hey, where am I
Wilbur.
dropping? Where's the forklift?
There's no
Wilbur
in Tennessee.
East.
Oh yeah, we have a map over
Yeah,
there.
there's a map right there. You can see like
Oh yeah,
Ohio.
we don't go past Kentucky here.
No. So, anyways, and I said, "Hey, there's a storm coming." There was that ice, freezing rain and snow coming in, pretty nasty storm. And I said, "Hey, there's a storm coming." He said, "What storm?" And I said, "Oh, it's going to get pretty nasty here." So, anyways, he texted me some paperwork, so I had his phone number. And me and my wife, shortly after that, got on the freeway heading down state, and I was telling her the story because I was shocked that he didn't understand that a storm was coming, and that he was in Tennessee the day before at the wrong address. And I moved over on the freeway, switching lanes because there was cops, had a semi on the side of the road, and as we got closer, the semi was in the ditch. And as we went by, my wife was like, "Is that the driver?" And I looked, and it was him. I was just blown away. And he was the only vehicle we saw the whole 2-hour drive to Grand Rapids in the ditch. So I texted him and I said, "Hey, is that you in the ditch?" And he just replied, "Yep."
Yeah, hate to see it.
Hate to see it. Yep.
Dude, the ice storms are no joke, and especially up here in that last week, there were some crazy. The ice really didn't hit our area. It was mostly more toward the center of Michigan here, and Gaylord got really hit with some nasty
Up
stuff.
north a little bit too.
Yeah, but that's funny is because you actually sent us in a group chat a picture of some farms in East Jordan of some cherry trees, and cherries, let alone with just the weight of those on the branches, depending on the age of the tree, can really break the limbs right off, and so you start adding a lot of ice. And the pictures that you showed that, and they were split. Every branch was broke right off the trunk of the tree, which is super unfortunate for them.
Yeah, devastating.
And Zach and I, we both have farms that are 20 minutes south of that.
Yeah.
So
Close.
Right.
I mean, that's the difference between losing trees and not. I mean, even in our southern Michigan farm, down in the Hartford area, we've had tornadoes kind of just split right in between because we're kind of split between two counties down there. And we've had two separate tornado events that have gone through and just destroyed some people's farms, and we've been fortunate enough to miss that. So that's pretty lucky for us.
Did
Yeah.
you guys get any damage or anything?
Yeah, we definitely
Sunday?
had some. Oh, Sunday? I don't think so.
That storm that
No,
okay.
not that I've seen or heard. We've been pretty lucky.
Yeah, because as soon as I got to Grand Rapids Sunday and got in the hotel, the tornado sirens were going
Oh,
off. So
jeez.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually pretty upset because I was watching the Michigan State game, and they actually had tornado warnings that they said, "We're not going to leave this screen until the tornado warnings are gone." And it
Yeah.
was like the beginning of the second.
Right in the
Yeah.
middle of the state game.
And I was like, "What is
My-
going
yeah.
on here?"
My brother-in-law Jordan he was over and we were watching it, and he was getting really mad. So
Well, I was too. I was like, come on.
I actually had the March Madness app on my phone though, and
watching?
casted it to the Samsung TV like we were talking earlier.
Hey, whoa,
Yeah,
Samsung's not a sponsor of this.
I know, but
particular
they are
podcast.
great TVs.
Well, that's funny because I was very upset about that. But what was even the most upsetting part is it was so far south. Like if you're hearing about it in East Lansing or in Lansing,
Grand Rapids.
you're in Grand Rapids, right? But I mean, still, that's 2.5 hours away from here. And like, you don't have to disrupt my Michigan State
Right.
viewing for that. But granted, tornado warnings are not take anything away from them because they're very important, especially for those individuals living in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we talk about why you guys are excited about this podcast? What do you guys think? Why did you sign on, right? Because I said, hey, I want to do this. I texted Steve and Zach. I said,
I know we talked about it a long time ago. And I was like, dude,
this has been in the works for a minute. In the works for a minute.
Yeah, pretty much what the last month we've kind of started putting it all together
really
and getting
making
serious about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's kind of evolved in a good way to, I think, because we talked more like maybe like talking like spray recommendations and stuff at the beginning, right? And it was kind of like, oof, like, unless you're going live, like.
Right. Well, there's a difference between making a recommendation, which we're not ever really going to do is make a recommendation because anybody can listen to this at any point in time,
Right.
which may not be the appropriate
Right.
thing. And what I'm doing on my farm is different than what Zach's doing on
Yep.
his farm
Correct.
and also different than what Steve and the Hubble family are doing on their farm. So we're not, yes, exactly.
Yep.
There was ideas around. We were going to talk about some weather that happens up here and some issues that could arise, but yes, we're not going to make any
Yeah.
recommendations.
No, but I think what I'm excited about is the education opportunity. We'll be having different guests on the different parts of the industry, and all you can do is learn from them. They've been in it even longer than we have, most of them, and connection with like-minded people. Those are a couple things that
just
I'm excited about.
Something fun to do.
Yep.
Get together and
Right.
talk about what goes on. We do. Our farm is different than what
Yep.
Talon does.
Right. What's working?
Kinda,
What's
yeah,
not working?
Comparing and
It's funny how it's so different, but we're all within
Yeah.
15 miles
Yeah.
of each other.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yep.
even we have the same crop consultant. And I'll text Zach and I'll say, hey, is he pushing this on you? And it's like a $750 a
Chemical?
gallon bottle. I'm like, what the? And Zach's like, no, I'm not running that. I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
what
yeah.
the?
and then I end up running it.
And then he
'cause
runs
that's
it.
all there
And then he
was.
runs it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yep.
No, but it's yeah, I think it's a unique opportunity for a bunch of us to kind of just get together and we always get together on Wednesdays anyway and do
We do.
breakfast. And
Yep.
why not just kind of put it on paper and bring some other individuals in that probably know a little bit more about things than we do and just get
We're
different stories.
learning.
We're
We're
always
learning.
learning.
Yep. We're all
Always-
pretty young.
Always
Yep.
learning. So Zach, why else are you excited about the podcast? Why did you join? I said, hey, you want to join? And then you ended up saying, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to buy a mic and I'm going to
Something
sit
fun to
down
do.
and we're going to hang
I
out.
like it.
Try something different.
I'm glad that Zach is here.
Yeah. Didn't think
He's
I'd
got
be
a
able to-
great sense of humor, smart, been in farming forever.
38 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many years you been doing it? You
Six-
started with 16.
16, yeah. So
okay.
I was
Yeah, yeah.
14 and I was, driving a 990.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I drove it, Bruce put me out in a mature orchard behind his house, and it was we had wide row, narrow row at the time where we were. So wide row, narrow row, we plant the cherry trees closer distance, and then wider row. So we had different mowers at different widths
In the same orchard?
in the same orchard.
Really?
Right? Yeah. So when we would go mow, we had a 10-foot mower on a 990 case, and then we had like a 13 to a 15 to hit the wide rows. And so like when we would go do herbicide, we would have to skinny up the trucks and then widen them out. We had different settings for everything. So that was a bit of a pain in the butt. We've really gotten away
Was
from
there a
that.
reason that they did that? I never heard
don't
of
know.
that.
I can't imagine it's because you can get more trees per acre if you're doing narrower, but then it's wider.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. So the first time that I ran a piece of junk tractor, 990. Like half the time it wouldn't start, and he throws me on it. And I was 14 or 15 at the time, and I was like, I don't even know how to drive a stick shift or anything. So once I finally got it going, I remember I got to the end. He was up at the top of the hill, the driveway. I drove down and got toward the bottom of the hill, and I was like, holy cow, I don't know how to slow down. I knew nothing about a clutch. So I'm cramming my foot on the brake, and the brakes are squealing. I mean, there are probably no brakes. The tractor was such a POS. And I get to the bottom, and I turned, and the tractor's just out of control. And I don't hit a tree when I come around the corner, but I was like sweating when I got to the top. And I remember coming back up, and I was yelled to him. I'm like, hey, how do I stop this thing? I didn't know jack.
Was this
about
during
it.
cherry season?
No, this was earlier. This was
Training?
earlier in the spring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first experience driving a tractor, and it was
Okay, because I was going to say, I don't recall you guys ever using tractors in the field. Always homemade.
no
Right.
No,
Right.
this
For
was
cherries
this was
anyways.
just mowing. Yeah, this was just some.
You guys do have
preseason
some
mowing.
really crazy homemade stuff.
Yeah, there's one thing about our farm that has been pretty interesting is that we've always fabricated pretty much all of our own stuff,
Yep.
which is pretty cool until like other people who are new employees have to go work on it.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What the like our hedger truck?" I should get a picture of the hedger truck to put up on here because that thing, it looks like a death trap. It's got 4 sickle bars.
Yeah.
And it's just the original wiring from 40 years ago.
It looks like
A school bus that you guys cut down and
It has 2 motors. It's one big gas tank. It burns like 60 gallons of gas.
it looks like it should be on like the movie Transformers,
Yeah, it should.
right?
Yeah,
That's what I think. Like,
Yeah, it's an intense piece of equipment, but and that's just one of the things we fabricate. All of our spray trucks, we use buses, and we add like a 750-gallon tank, and they have 2 diesel engines, one for the truck, obviously, to drive it, and another one in the back that runs the fan for the application aspect. And most of that was all kind of motivated by being able to get across our land faster because we're farming about 2,400 acres, I think, across our northern Michigan, southern Michigan, so we can actually spray like at 7.5 to 8.5 miles an hour, even though the guys, they like to go a little bit quicker. But that's the only way we can get across that amount of acreage doing half coverage too.
yeah, especially when the spray window's so small. You got to go when the weather's
across all that land. And that's one thing that I wish that we could be a little more accurate about on our farm is that when you have such a huge area to cover at once, you can't really be so specific. And like you look at this farm and it has a problem and you spray that farm one way.
right.
Because if you do something one way and you don't get over here, you're going to fall behind. And then once you fall behind on 2,400 acres, you're never going to catch back up.
Do you
And then
think
you're
like
constantly
the
catching
weather is different? What are disease pressure?
Yeah, because you're talking 2,400 acres
Yeah.
between up here and downstate.
Exactly.
Right.
Split
Yeah,
between
okay.
both. So, yes, the downstate stuff is definitely more intense
Yeah.
right off the bat. And we get a longer growing season down there. And some of the stuff is a little bit different. We don't really have SWD pressure down there because of how
You
early
normally
we
start
harvest.
early.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we're usually down there. We're the last week of June into
Wait,
the first week of July. We start and we're done by mid-July and we're back up
Yep.
here. So we usually downstate goes pretty smooth.
what's SWD? We should probably talk about.
Spotted wing Drosophila.
Right. Okay.
Well, Steve's the
Hey,
guy.
it
Tell
looks
us
like a
about it.
fruit fly, but it
Smaller than a fruit fly.
yeah.
Very hard. Can't see it by the naked eye.
Right, right. It stings soft-sided fruit. Basically, while it's stinging, it lays an egg inside. The egg hatches.
Yeah, and it completely rots out the middle of the fruit, and you can see it from a mile away. It has a little pinhole. That's the only way. And once you see the pinhole, you're
So is it a maggot or a
problem.
worm? It's a maggot, right?
it lays
Because
it,
it's
it
a
stays
fly.
in there.
Right.
Does it have legs? No, it's a maggot. Correct?
I just know that you don't want to see it.
Right.
And there's a difference between OBLR and an OBLR worm.
I know.
OBLR worm
But-
and a SWD worm look
Some
very
people go
similar.
like, "Oh, I got worms in my fruit," and it drives me crazy because I'm like, I think it's a maggot, but
right.
they're
Well,
different.
You don't want them in your fruit. anyways.
Right, you don't want anything in your
Regardless,
fruit.
anything that is inside your fruit shouldn't
Yeah.
be inside your fruit,
Yeah.
and that's going to be a big no-no from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
processing standpoint. But SWD is a huge problem up north, and it was last year, but in the previous years it was not.
Yep.
And I believe that has to do with the amount of rain and the warm temperatures that we had earlier in the spring
And the
and
cold,
the previous
cold
years.
weather we get in the
Yeah,
wintertime
That's also
kills a
true.
lot.
And we had the last couple of years we had some milder winters, which is interesting because you'd think with a harder winter. Well, that's right. This is the first hard winter we've had in what,
Long time.
like 3-4 years?
It also seems like
least.
their populations like grow better in moist
Yeah.
springs
they
or
like-
early summers.
Yes, that's when they start building.
When we
their
had those couple
populations.
dry years back to back, we didn't really. They weren't an issue.
No,
You know?
they don't. I think they don't like the heat and they don't have time to build that without that moisture.
Yeah.
What do you guys do on your farm if you run into an SWD problem? Or do you guys just try and get them off in
We
time?
try to get them off before we get the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest.
Which
Like a
you're
lot
in.
of the insecticides didn't do much this year.
And sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't. And a lot of it is timing. I mean, once they get
Yeah.
to a certain population, there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they always start from the outside and work their way in, especially from wooded areas. So that's the first place we look. This last year, we definitely had some problems where we were leaving chunks of orchards behind. We would leave like 3 or 4 rows from the road or the outside of the orchard in. We would be walking through, during the daylight hours and checking the boundaries and the edges to make sure that we Didn't have any of that in the fruit, and then double checking those first couple tanks as they came into the receiving
Do
facility.
you guys
to
put up
make sure they didn't
traps
have any.
in them?
Yeah, we
to catch
definitely
'em? Do
we
you?
do earlier in the year, but
Yeah.
like last year, I mean, you could walk in, you could smell it. It's funny. If you guys really get into an orchard that has a problem, it has like a distinct vinegar smell. And
really?
we pluck the cherries off the trees and you rip them open and you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes
I've-
you can actually find the worm in there before it drops out.
I've honestly been in a orchard that was let go, like they weren't going to harvest it, and the SWD was so bad you could hear the maggots falling out of the cherries onto the ground. It sounded like
I bet
raindrops.
that was OBLR. I bet that was that worm.
It was
OBLR is very similar. People
Yeah.
really get fired up when they see a worm in the tank and they think
Right.
it's SWD, but they look very similar. But you have to look at the color distinction on the head of the
Yeah.
worm, and that's how you can really tell the difference between them. But yeah, so that's a real challenge, especially in our organics. We're farming about 250 acres of organic tart cherries here in northern Michigan, and again, we try and get those off as fast as possible because we
Yeah.
have that, and then PC are a big issue, and we really can't
hardest.
stop. We really can't stop those. There's nothing that works well. We really try and hit them with the Talon clay.
oh
like
yeah,
in surround.
surround.
Yeah, we throw some serious bags into
Yeah.
that tank to get that done, but it does it if you get the timing right. But as soon as that fruit starts changing colors, they just go right at it.
Yep.
Or what is it? You wait for that first night of 60 degrees, then they just
Yeah,
they come right out of the woods and they
Yep.
just hammer it, and there's no stopping them in the organics, unfortunately.
right.
Do you guys only do organics up here, or do you
Yeah,
just
we don't
stuff
do anything
yourself?
downstairs.
Okay.
No, our there's some other local growers
That do,
down there
but
that
not
do
you guys.
organic, and it has been a tough go down there.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any apples downstate?
Nope, all cherries down there, and we're kind of in the process. The acreage, we really planted a bunch in like 2004 kind of time frame, and a lot of those farms are getting really beat up. So we're kind of in the process in the next 3 years of letting one of those farms grow, and we're trying to look to expand down there and buy some or lease some ground because we really like the growing season down there. It really
Yeah,
helps
yeah,
us
yeah.
get things warmed up just for our whole kind of family of companies here for processing as we
Yep.
kind of warm up into the season. So we really like working down there. It's a great growing season. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's Tony down there, our farm manager, but we always have great crops.
He's
down
been
there.
with you guys forever. He's yeah, great guy.
For a long time, we were averaging like 1 million pounds per 100 acres kind of down there, and that was pretty much the average. But as the trees are getting older, a little more tree attrition's going on. It used to take us 14 days to get through that block down there, 16 sometimes because there would be so much fruit. But now there's just trees are dying and breaking, and we ended up getting through it in 9 to 10 days instead of 14 to 16. So it's definitely interesting how the health of the orchards takes a toll. I mean, it's obviously pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
When you think about it, like no trees, it's obviously production's going to go down, but the trees down there grow big, and the rows are probably too wide. I think when we did the planting, we gave them a little too much space. I think there's a little lost production of tree population. But
When
I
I worked,
think it's interesting how many tanks you guys shake a day.
yeah, it's that is one thing that is very intense, and I don't know if it's probably so hard for I always think about this. Like if I started on a small farm and then tried to just jump into what we do on our farm, it has to be so difficult. You probably have growers that need 1 pallet of sulfur for a year.
oh,
Yeah.
And
Not
we
even.
buy
Yeah.
semi-loads of it.
right.
And it's just
Yep.
the quantity. I mean, and everyone thinks like maybe because we have that many more cherries that we might make more money, but it's the same. It costs us the same amount of money.
Yep.
We're still getting paid the same amount as everybody else.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's just it's interesting. So like if a normal farmer's happy with, sorry, not normal, but if the average local person around here is looking for 40 tanks in a day, like that's a pretty solid day.
Yeah.
I don't know what's your guys' max you've done in a day.
One crew we can do. I mean, if we're in good shaking, I've done 100 and some tanks.
Yeah, that's solid. I mean,
Yeah.
per crew, we're looking for in a good shaking
But everything's got to go right.
everything.
A lot of fruit on the trees. All the equipment's got to stay together.
Yeah.
And how often does that happen?
About never. That's why
Yeah.
we have we have 7 sets of machinery, and we run 3 during the day and 3 at night. And that's just to keep things rolling. We always have 2 sets broke, so it's
Yeah.
like we barely keep stuff together most of the time, or we're down to our last piece of equipment.
Right.
But yeah, we're shaking sometimes downstate, especially more or less back in its prime. We can almost do 1 million pounds of cherries in a 24-hour period And that's two
That's
crews.
crazy.
That's 2 crews downstate, 24 hours a day pushing. That's 230 tanks a crew. We're above 400 tanks. 450
Well, a million pounds
tanks a
would be
day.
1,000 tanks a day, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't that
a
about
little
what
bit
they
more
figure?
or less, yeah. It's
Man,
it's
that's a
intense
lot.
down there, and it's a lot of high volume really quick, and there's a lot of people who play a big part in making sure that all those
Everything's got to stay moving.
right, because if I'm out in the orchard and watching the guys and making sure that we're taking care of the fruit, because when you have that much fruit, it's super easy to damage the fruit, right? Because you could shake a tree and it has 250 pounds of cherries on it. So if you just shake it all hard at one time, those cherries are going to smash. And you can see it on the belt. There'll be cherries this thick on the conveyor belt. And so as they hit the elevator and they go up, they just start rolling back. And it is just trashing the fruit. And then obviously smashed fruit,
Yeah.
that's a no-no.
But now you're a big YouTube star, so you're just out there recording film and stuff. all
Yeah,
the
Right.
time.
I pretty much just I check in, I punch in, and I hit record, and then when I'm done, and I can do the rest from a phone call. No, I'm not a big YouTube star. That's not.
You're getting there.
You're
Let's
getting
not
there,
punch
man.
that out there.
You're getting there.
Well, and a lot of it is help from other people and encouragement from people like yourself. Because I bet if I just out of the blue said, with no background on anything, and said, "Hey, why don't we just sit?" Well, maybe you would because we're having a good time.
Right.
But like if with no experience or anything, it's tough. It's a tough sell, but it has been quite the journey. And thanks to you guys and anybody else that's out there watching that has supported over that period of time that I have started here in the last year, which is very fun. And we wouldn't be doing this here today probably if I didn't start that.
Right.
Right.
It would
Absolutely
never
not.
have came across.
Yep.
Yeah, you're the one that kind of encouraged us to do this.
Yeah.
We both didn't think that we could sit in front of a microphone and
Yeah.
talk.
Absolutely not.
I was feeling like it was going to be a little more awkward than it is, but then you just look around and we're just
Just like
chit-
sitting here at breakfast in the morning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We might have to
Exactly.
take this to the dam shop.
The damn shop in Oak Rapids.
Yep. So, what else did I want to talk about here today? I wanted to talk to Steve a little bit because not only is Steve employed here at Wilbur Ellis, and that is agriculture on its own, he also married into an agriculture family who has been farming for a
What?
long time.
Yeah. 3-4 generations. Yep.
And then on top of that, they did another great thing to try and help bridge the gap between lost profits on prices and trying to keep the farm going with opening up their own farm market. So I was hoping you could shed a little light on that and what that journey has been like, because it's been 3-4 years now, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it was brand new. And I remember when it first came out, they were on the news all the time, doing a lot of promotion.
Yeah. A
and
lot of.
I've been to a lot of the events. In fact, a cornhole champion.
You are. Yep.
Oh man.
Has there been another
At the
tournament?
Myrtle,
What kind of
he's.
the greatness that we're sitting
We've
in front
had.
of
I
tonight?
know.
I know it.
YouTube,
You guys,
cornhole.
We had one.
you guys don't know what you're missing.
We had one cornhole tournament, and this guy
still
just
the-
comes
still the
in
champ.
and just.
Still the champ.
We haven't had another one because
The beating was so
Nobody
bad.
yeah,
wants to get
everybody
beat that
nobody
bad
would
again.
sign up anymore.
No mercy.
They're like, hey, do we have to? Is Talon going to be there? Do we have to? Do we
Yeah.
have to play again?
Yeah.
Couldn't convince.
Did
him.
you use your gift card that you won?
In fact,
Did you?
I think I tried, and then your mother-in-law
forgot about this.
checked us out and then made us pay for the full thing, and then
Yep.
took the card.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah, so I remember I think Sadie texted me like 2 days later, and she was like, "Hey, wait,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that we charged you even though you had a gift card."
Yeah,
And I was like, "Well, let me check." And I was like, "Yeah, you definitely
yeah,
did.
you did.
We got like
and
a
you didn't even
sweatshirt
catch
and a
it.
hat. You know,
Yeah,
it ain't nothing to a work.
we sell your honey there too.
That's right.
Cherry bee.
Yes, that's great. Yes, we do have our own apiary company here on our farm where we
Your own
use
what?
apiary. And we
Never
that
heard that
word?
before.
Yeah, what's that word? It's too big for us.
it's very short. It's like bees.
Gotcha.
And we do all of our own pollinating with our own honeybees. We have land in Florida, and they travel. They've gone. I think we've done some cranberries in Wisconsin, but most of the time they go from Florida. We'll buzz them out to California, and they'll do almonds, and then they'll go back to Florida, and then he kind of splits the hives, adds some queens, does whatever he does. We should have him on here. This would be a great guy. To
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
the bee
We'll
stuff.
get
It
deeper.
would.
We'll get deeper into that.
It's very, it's super interesting.
Yeah.
the bee stuff and
Yep.
the kind of stuff. I've done two episodes on Pomes and Stones about the bees with him, and he's just a wealth of knowledge with it. And it's just
And not afraid to get stung.
no, dude, it's
Just
so
out there, shorts
Dude.
and a t-shirt.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's so
it's-
funny. You've seen them where they have like
I don't know how
they'll
people
have
do
it
it.
where the bees will leave the hive, the box, and they'll hang in the tree. And I'll just text him like, hey, I'm not going to go over there. There's a bunch of bees hanging in this tree. He goes, all right, I'll be over there in a second. He just buzzes right down, and he gets the box and he lines it up. He just lines that sucker up, and then he just shakes it. And he's not wearing anything, and the bees just, poof, and they land in the box, and poof, they're flying everywhere, and he just puts the box back down and walks away.
Oh, my gosh.
It's crazy. When I help out during the bees in the spring, when I drive our big yellow truck,
Yep.
I got duct tape on my gloves, and like I'm wearing a full suit and mask, and I'm doing everything I can, and like one gets on me, and I'm like swiping at it and shit. And I'm like
Like
get
you're
away
going to
from me.
die.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But those guys are crazy. It's definitely an interesting lifestyle, like a job to pick. You know, like who grows up and they're like, you know what, I'm going to get stung every day for the rest of my life because I
Right.
like it.
Hey, some people get into bees.
Some people get into that. Who says they want to farm and sit in a tractor by themselves
Right.
and listen to the same 12 songs
Didn't
on
we
the
listen
radio?
to a speaker in Grand
mean-
Rapids this winter, and all they talked about was the bees? And
Yep.
The bees, right? One of the most important things, though.
They're very important.
Yeah.
Bees are very important. I watched it. I forget what the Netflix documentary was that came out a couple of years ago, but it was talking about how other people are adding sugars and stuff to their honey and sending it over. I think I'm about 99% sure. But if your honey doesn't
that's what I was
crystallize, then
gonna
it's
say.
not pure.
Didn't you tell me this at one time?
Yeah.
That
Interesting.
Yep.
Right.
So if you go buy honey at the store and it sits in your closet or in your cupboard for like a year and you pull it out and it's not like rock hard and crystallized,
Yep.
then that has some additives to it. It's not pure honey.
Ah. I find the same with seasonings, right? If your
mustard.
seasoning doesn't,
Mustard.
I do love mustard. If your seasoning doesn't clump up, it's because it's got stuff in there,
Yeah.
anti-caking stuff, right? Which,
It's like rice and the salt.
right, like, yeah.
So we got a little off track there. I was
Yeah,
asking
yeah, back to Myrtle and Mons.
Take it back to
Happen a
Myrtle and
lot.
Mons. That
Yeah.
is the name
So,
of it.
right, we started that a few years back. The idea was to just try and supplement the farm by selling produce, other knickknacks. We also redo some furniture. There's a whole list of things that we sell out of that place. And every year it's been growing. Yeah, it's been great. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, but it definitely pays off. And it's educational for everybody that comes there. Everybody's got questions. Actually, one guy even asked, we have a miniature High Park cow. My wife might get mad at me if I did that wrong.
She'll be offended for sure.
Somebody asked us if that was a llama.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's very educational for people. Yeah, it's good.
What I like that you guys do there is you do a great job of pulling people in by having other things going on, right? Because originally, just having a farm market is great when it opens and people want to come and stuff. But you guys do the ladies' night. You guys, like we had mentioned before, you guys did the cornhole tournament. You guys had, because my wife was suckered into it. We did the pictures, the Christmas card
yeah.
on the truck at the old retro truck out in the back.
Yep.
So I mean, you guys do a great job of pulling people in.
Yes.
Outside of just being open, right? Because especially on Elk Lake Road, like that. Sorry, excuse me. For those of you who aren't from the area, Elk Lake Road is a 55-mile-an-hour road, but nobody goes 55
Right. Right.
because there's a main road on one end and another main highway on the other side, and about nothing in between except for Myrtle and Mods, and a bunch of cherry orchards between,
potholes.
and
Yep.
potholes.
Yep.
So
Yes.
it's very hard to get people to stop on that road. And so I think you guys do a great job of that. And obviously your mother-in-law and wife
Yep.
have been a big part of that. And they kind of just rope you in to take care of most of the hard work.
Yeah. I mean, just,
not hard work.
It's
I
the
don't wanna- I don't
easy. It's the
I don't
easy.
want to offend anybody.
Right.
But you
I
guys
call
are
it the
going-
easy work because I don't really have to think. They
just
tell me
doing.
what to do.
That's fine.
Yep.
Isn't that what 90% of being a husband is?
It is.
Just doing what
I'd
your
say
wife
like
tells you?
99.9% of it is I do what I'm told.
And showing up, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then you guys are also in the works for getting a liquor license? Wine? What
So
is it?
yeah,
Tell us
small
about- tell us
winemaker's
about that.
license. Right. Been working with the township. There's no ordinance currently, so we've actually been talking to some other places around the state that have had to overcome similar situations. Yep. And yep.
Do you have like an idea about how much business that could potentially bring in? Because I know
Not
that
really.
if you guys sold a couple ice cold bush lights,
Yep.
I would be there much longer.
Right.
And the longer I stay there, the more money my wife would spend.
100%. Right.
But you need a different license for bush lights.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
But
it would
but
be.
Mr. C's has been down, so that
you're-
license is sitting there.
I know, but that'd be like, yeah, you'd have to actually get a class. Like,
They're probably holding on to that in case they
ABC.
sell that building.
yeah, exactly. It kind
So
of
you'll
goes
have
with
to
the
get
building.
used to drinking wine.
Yep. Or ciders.
Wine's great, but
You can do beers. We got to figure out exactly what you can do, but my wife's got a better handle on that stuff. We'll probably have her on later on a different
absolutely. I
episode.
think we should have the wives on for an episode.
Yeah.
I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah. So
Just bring them in and just let them just rip on us.
Yep.
Instead
She
of
kind of
all
leads that for that farm market. So
Yeah, she's great at that, and I keep encouraging her.
actually a new member of the Township Planning Committee.
Well, congratulations to her.
I know.
Congratulations to her.
Yep.
I keep in trying to push her every time you kind of bring it up to go ahead and start kind of doing what I do and just record what you do every day. She does a great job, but you got to stay consistent, and people want to see it.
Yep.
Excuse me. People want to see what you guys are doing on a home farm. You guys just moved right there.
Yep. Moved on the farm.
When did she get appointed?
A couple weeks ago now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So far, so good.
Tell her to volunteer to be the liaison to the zoning board. Then she'll be on 2 boards.
Oh yeah.
The liaison.
Yeah,
So-
that's the township liaison.
So I don't think that we even I talked a little bit about what we do on the farm for us, but we didn't really talk about what we grow, which on the specialty cropcast is probably pretty
Yeah.
easy to point out. But why don't we just talk a little bit about, if you're growing
crops?
apples, cherries, what kind of varieties per person here? We'll kind of go through that and share a
Yep.
little bit more about the farm operations.
Yep.
We grow a little bit of everything. We've
Mm-hmm.
got tart cherries, sweet cherries, pears, plums, apples, all sorts of varieties of apples. And then we also do some soybeans and wheat right now as a kind of rotation crop.
And
Not getting into corn
Not
at
yet.
this time.
not yet. And why do we like soybeans so much?
No SWD, no
Because
leaf spot.
they don't get leaf spot. Oh, that's funny. And you do any sweet cherries? You got some.
Yeah.
sweet-
Yeah,
He
we got
said
about
sweets.
100 acres of sweets.
And this is going to be a touch sidetrack. What's your bird pressure like? For the crows pecking
They're
up the
all
trees?
over.
They're all over.
Yeah.
Do you do anything for that? You have any
No,
air cannons
we don't.
or anything?
No,
you
we-
don't do anything. Avian guard.
Nope. No avian
You don't.
guard.
You don't
We
spray
put-
you don't spray the purple Kool-Aid on them.
Oh, we did that one
remember
summer.
that story,
Somebody
yeah,
gave
yeah.
us gave us an idea of using unsweetened grape Kool-Aid. So we go on Amazon and buy it by like the hundreds.
Yeah.
and mix
By
it in
the,
a sprayer.
by the
and,
huge thing.
Yep. Yep. And go out and try that.
We've done some similar stuff for deer on young trees. We've gotten Gordon food boxes of egg mix and just dumped it right into the spray tank. We put Frank's Red Hot sauce
Yep.
and sprayed
Oh,
it
yeah,
right
I've
on the
heard
trees.
that. Yep.
We've done a lot of different.
We actually
things.
have a product called hot sauce
Yeah.
for repellent.
We've used that.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
No,
Will you
I-
find out who came up with that name because that guy needs a raise.
The Miller hot sauce.
Oh,
It's Miller's. It's
it's
um,
actually
right. It's, yeah.
Oh, it's Miller's. Yeah, we use their new film.
Oh yeah, Miller's. Yep.
So what do you guys? What's the
Oh boy.
what is it?
Yeah.
Orchard View.
Currently growing in the ground. There's tart cherries, sweet cherries, a whole bunch of different apples. There's some peach trees. Actually just ordered some table grapes. They're in the cooler. I'll be planting some table grapes.
Because you're a
this
big grape
spring.
guy. That's your main.
I deal
focus,
a
right?
lot with wine grapes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your number one customer probably, or not customer, but that's
Yeah.
like you're out scouting the grapes, right? That's your
Yeah.
thing out on Old Mission,
Yep. Yep.
which is very popular for wineries and grapes here in northern Michigan.
Yep. Yep. So yeah. A whole bunch of different table grape varieties. We're gonna see how they do here in Michigan.
Very nice.
What do you put those poles in the ground and then wire them and tie it? Is that
Yeah.
how
So
you
this
do
first
grapes?
year we'll just plant them and let them grow without the trellis system.
Oh, okay.
And then yeah.
And that's like a short. Yeah, it's like a short trellis. You're talking.
Yeah.
Probably
yeah,
about
yeah,
as tall
yeah.
as you are.
Right. 6 foot. Yeah.
Oh, 6 foot.
No, the trellis system 6 foot, not me.
No, they're not you. Oh,
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, if there's one thing that we don't do at Cherry Key is any kind of row crop. And we've been traditionally farming just tart Montmorency cherries in, I don't know, very small amount of acres of a couple different varieties of sweet cherries for Brian. We just recently got into the apple game, which we are learning every day that it's a
Lot to learn about,
It's a
isn't there?
lot. It's a lot to learn. That's what I spent a lot of my time doing now, is focusing on apples. As we kind of come into production, we started our first high density block in 2021. We planted in the fall of 2021, and we just got our first crop of Jana Golds off of that. It was like 180 boxes or something. So that was a good start. It was a good start. There was a bit of a mishap with the thinning. We probably could have had a couple.
Yeah,
more,
I was going to ask you
boxes,
to talk about that
more.
story, but
I mean, we can get into it if we want to.
no, I don't. Yeah, it ended up working out fine though.
I think
You
it
didn't,
worked.
you didn't hurt them any.
No,
I think it
no.
worked out great because
Probably
the
helped
trees.
them, actually.
Yeah, the trees.
Do you know how
weren't
many
at the
times
top
people
area.
think they over thin, and then once the
It's
apple,
never
really
enough.
hard to overthink.
That's
Yeah.
what I always think. That's
Yeah.
what they say, especially Honeycrisp. Like if you're thinning, you need to go out and do it again,
Right.
Because you never did enough,
right,
Yep.
right, you can never thin it, especially honeys, right? I mean, they're in storage longer and longer, and I'm not saying that we want to get
Well, this is probably
less honeys, but
Yeah.
if everybody thinned a little bit more,
well. That's what it comes down to, though, is talking about protecting your trees and preparing for the next year, right? Because for those of you who don't know much about apples, they will go biannual on you if you don't kind of manage their crop load.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is kind of just, you always are thinning apples, and that might be a weird concept for some people because on cherries, we're just trying to get as many as you possibly can
Yep.
for the most part.
But you guys kind of thin cherries because you go in and hedge them in the spring.
Yes, we do. That,
Yeah,
that
well,
really that helps set
sure.
the crop as well. But yeah, we're definitely and there's a lot that goes on with the hedging for a reason. You know, a lot of people do it as well.
We tend to do ours more in the fall, but
Right. We always do ours in the spring. We have started doing a little bit of fall because sometimes we can't get across all of our acreage. But doing the organic blocks or doing organics has really helped the hedger keep up because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
250 acres that you don't really have to do because they're not very vigorous. They don't grow.
Yeah.
They're not growing that much. We might do it every once in a couple of years, but all of our organic trees, because this started out as an experiment, we didn't pick our best orchard. You know, all these are old trees. These are 20. They were 20 plus at the time. So we kind of just picked some rough trees in an area that was kind of secluded all by itself over here by the resort, right across the street here. And it's been quite the adventure so far, for sure.
yeah,
For sure. And we were kind of starting to get into storage on apples, which I'm sure we'll get into again on a later date. But we did a whole thing. Well, Wilbur Ellis did a whole thing this fall talking about Heart Vista
yep,
and about how you can spray this stuff on your trees that can help them stay in better condition in storage over
Correct.
a longer period of time. Because when we were at the Grand Rapids show, I think it was the Apple One class, was it the first day, when they had a panel of people who were running the storage for the storage facilities, and they said they were really looking at having Honeycrisp in storage for like 12 months, which
Yep.
is
was that the meeting we sat through the whole time and didn't get any points for it? Or
no.
was that
I
the year
think
before?
That was the year before. That was the irrigation one.
yeah.
They had a panel of people, and they talked about watering your plants, and the whole room was packed because it was
Yep.
the end of the first day. Everyone's looking for their points. You know,
Yep.
we're all point crazy by the
Right.
end of the day down there, and we're all waiting around, and people are like not leaving; they're hanging around, and the MC comes up, and she's like, "There's no points because we talked about water, so we'll see you guys tomorrow."
wow,
And like you
We
could
were so
hear,
mad.
I can imagine.
you
Big
could just-
gasps.
Yeah, right. We went straight to the bar after that.
yeah, that stinks. Yeah,
Very, yeah.
How many
That was
points you got this year?
You could probably look it up on your computer. I actually
Yeah,
just
I was
I
at
just,
33 when I looked last week.
Yeah, I was at. I think I had like 82 when my license redid.
Ooh, I got
just
a year.
got-
I need to catch
I
up.
just did
Yeah.
mine just renewed this year with a few.
you guys are gonna laugh
added
at
that.
me, but I just passed my test to get mine like a month ago.
Nice.
Right?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Steve.
I
Congratulations,
know.
Steve. Congratulations on passing.
I'll tell you, it's
applicator
weird.
Test.
Passed the first time.
I passed it
Yeah.
when I was 14.
Nice.
Yep.
What was your percentage, by the way? Do you remember?
80.
You remember?
80,
It wasn't
85.
It's the 70 to pass.
70 to pass.
70 to pass.
I think
yeah.
I had a 72.
Lots
I
of room.
just skinned by.
Oh, yeah.
Just like
Yeah,
most,
yeah, yeah.
just like most of my schooling.
Doing it with the moderator though. Have you guys done that? Where
No,
they
we
like
were-
you do it at home?
No.
Oh man, that was
on a laptop.
yeah.
Dang.
Yeah,
Yep,
you gotta
you gotta
sit in
have your
front of the
camera
camera
on.
and
On
everything.
camera.
So I had I was set up on a desk, and when she came on, she was like, "I need to see the desk." So I had to pick up the computer and turn around. Well, there was paperwork around.
What if you had a desktop?
she was like-
what are you gonna bend
Right.
over and-
Yeah.
I know. So and she was like, "Oh no, you can't take the test there. There's too much paperwork." And I was like, "Okay, I'll move."
He's got answers.
So then I went to
He's
the
got
kitchen.
answers. Come on.
And I set up on the kitchen table, and then she goes, "Nope, you can't do it there because if somebody walks in, you fail."
Come on.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, I think I remember reading about that.
Yeah, so I ended up in my kid's bedroom, kneeling on a little tiny desk in the corner to take this test.
Which was probably about normal size for you, right?
yeah, right.
It was probably
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, short people jokes. Those
Oh
aren't
man,
going
now
away.
you can start joining us on the point gathering.
Yep. Now I gotta start
meetings.
gathering
You can start
points.
showing up to the other shows.
Yeah.
Well, Wilbur doesn't even offer one yet. We need to talk
Yeah,
about
what the
that.
heck?
Oh, the meeting.
Yeah, I'd like
I
to see a
know.
spring meeting.
So we did until COVID, and then
never
we just
fired it
haven't
back up.
fired it back up. So
Wow.
we need to though. But
every
Now
year's a
you
new year.
got a reason to go to Grand Rapids in December farm show.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. And I've been to that show the last 5 years though. But it's
Oh, that's right.
yeah. And now that they have the
We went out
farm
and had
market,
lunch. Done.
yeah,
He bought us lunch.
right.
Where did we go? Subpar? No, not subpar. What was it called?
Oh,
It was a
It
golf.
was like
something
a golf.
golf.
It had a golf
yeah.
simulator in it,
Yeah.
right in the middle of it,
Yeah, and
with open bays. Remember, it had the windows. Like if I was at a
Yeah.
golf simulator, the last thing I would want to do is have someone at the bar heckling me about my
Watching.
slice.
I know.
Like I don't
know.
need that because my slice is atrocious to begin with.
Yeah, and what Steve get like the biggest steak
I did.
I've seen.
Yeah, because you were on the carnivore.
I was
diet.
doing
Yeah.
the carnivore.
I do want to talk about
I
that.
love the carnivore diet. I'm back on it now.
Yes.
What week
Yeah.
is this?
What? 2?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
No, it's got to be week 3 because the last breakfast I was at, you were back on it, and I haven't
Oh,
gone
yeah.
to work in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Yep.
Your 8 eggs a meal.
Yep.
And just steak.
Steak.
Just- and
I
just
mean,
an
so
absolute
the other night
like
I
a
had
carnivore.
like a pork steak. I don't eat a lot of pork or chicken on this diet. It's mostly beef
Mm-hmm.
or eggs, but it's nice to change it up once in a while. But
did
you
want-
just feel good, man. Mental
Just
clarity.
better.
Yeah. You
I
don't
did-
have.
I did have a question about that because recently, after I signed up with Acres TV for Pomes and Stones, I had seen an individual on there who they were doing a podcast show similar to this, and one of the guys said that he had just done the carnivore diet. He said it has gotten rid of all headaches. I didn't watch the entire thing. I'll have to be honest about that, but he said it's minimized all of the headaches. You think you
Yeah.
have, when you say mental clarity, is that true?
Yeah. Yep. I would say. I mean, I drink a lot of water, which I think a lot of headaches for people, and I don't know people's diagnostics or whatever, but
That's true. Lack of water.
yeah, and I put salt in my water,
Really?
which people think is crazy, but yeah.
You know, my wife the other day, I guess it was last night, I was making boiling noodles because that's about the extent of my cooking
Most
I can
you
do
can
in the
cook.
kitchen. If it's not on the grill, let me
Like
boil some water
ramen
for you,
noodles?
sweetie.
Like
yeah.
ramen noodles?
Oh yeah, let me put some buttered noodles on that with some salt and you just talk about a
That's
romantic
awesome.
dinner.
Yeah.
But she said she was talking with my favorite mother-in-law, as I call her. She and I was sitting there watching the noodles boil, and she comes over and grabs our thing of olive oil and just starts dumping it into the water. And I was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, it's so the noodles don't stick together."
Oh.
And I was like, I mean, I never knew that needed to be
I
a thing.
put it in before mine always stick.
Really?
Really?
Because I tried to get them out with a spoon.
I've never done that before.
And I couldn't get one to stick. I had to get a fork and do the old twizzle
Oh,
it
yeah.
around, Lady in the Tramp, that thing.
Wow.
And I've never seen anything like that before. I've seen people putting salt in boiling water. Is that
Yeah,
a thing
yeah,
to make
right.
it
Yeah.
try and boil a little bit quicker?
Is that what they do it for?
Is
I
that
thought
what-
it was supposed to help the noodles not stick
Yeah.
too, so that's why I did it.
Gotcha.
I'm all over the place, or we're all over the place.
Yeah.
One
We're
of
not-
us doesn't know how to cook.
I'm thinking it's might be all three of us.
Yeah. Don't ask me to cook. If it's not a steak or eggs, I don't know how to cook it.
Well, luckily my wife, when she wants a steak, she likes it well done.
Yeah.
So
I drive by, I
It
see
takes-
Zach's grill out in
All
his
the time.
driveway. All the
Tra-
time.
you got the
Smoking,
Traeger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every once in a while.
Nice.
I don't have a Traeger. I did get a Blackstone about a year ago. I'm really
nice.
liking that. That's very cool.
Those, yeah.
breakfast. I think breakfast is
Breakfast
my
on the
favorite.
Blackstone
Best way to cook
is the
bacon.
best way.
You don't have to have the smell inside.
Yep.
And my wife one day, she goes, you know what? I think I want to do some hibachi. And I was out there flicking those things around and
Wow.
yeah, cracked a couple eggs on that, spun the egg around. I didn't do that. But it's actually it's a more fun way to cook. Breakfast is my favorite for sure.
Yep.
Except
Maybe we'll do an episode of
you can't do ribs.
at Talon's with the
Oh,
Live from
that's a great idea.
hibachi night.
Live from the garage.
Live from
we can just sit around and have some beers and cook. Except you guys both don't drink, so
We'll,
just
Right.
I'll drink
we'll sit around the Blackstone and you can hibachi it up. For
Yeah,
us.
and I'll drink all the beers. We're coming up on 1 hour already. What else do we have to talk about? Steve's got
We
a
didn't think
lot
we'd
of.
be able to go that long.
I know there's tons.
There was a moment we hit about 15 minutes, and I was looking around, and I was like, I'm like this. I'm looking like backside. Both these papers are white in the back, and I'm
man.
like, oh man, we're out of stuff. But
Gotta
just like I
get-
thought.
You know,
getting
let's-
bored, ready to
let's-
get back in the fields.
Yeah.
Yes, I did write
Right.
something down. I said, what do we think about the future crops here in 2025?
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a
What do we
great
think?
question.
What do you think? How do you?
Things are looking good so far. I mean, it's been cool, so we're not
Yep.
pushing an early spring.
Yep.
That's
More of a normal.
That's the best thing. And,
Yep.
You know, a thought that I had, which there were some other questions asked at one of the orchard shows about this, was we came into the fall or the end of summer and fall with a massive drought. Like
Big time.
Huge.
yeah,
Yep.
we haven't seen a drought like that. And what was it? Was it almost 8 weeks? What was it? It was,
it was
beginning
long.
of August until
Yeah.
middle of October that we had any rain.
Longer than October because I
Yeah.
don't think we ever
Yeah.
took a day off picking for
Which
rain.
that never happens.
Never happens.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wonder what the situation or how the trees are going into dormancy with a lack of water because sure we ended up getting some rain in November and stuff like that, but I was pulling some trees out, clearing property lines for a deer fence that we did this fall, and you get down 6-8 inches and it was dry. So, I mean,
dry.
there's no saturation lower. So I'm kind of interested to see what kind of because we were already seeing
We
it
had a
in our
lot of
older
moisture though
trees.
this winter.
That's
We
true.
haven't
We had
had
a-
this
we-
much
we had
snow
a-
in
Yeah.
I don't know how long.
That's very true. But we were seeing trees die already, like with older tarts,
Yeah.
just turning
Through the
just
winter.
crisping.
Yeah.
And so I wonder what kind of
Well,
bounce,
we had
what kind of bounce
we had
back we'll have on,
Honeycrisp
on
trees
irrigated.
last year. You know, in the middle of picking, being so dry, they just basically shut down and everything started shriveling up.
Yeah,
so
we
we had a
are-
lot of Honeycrisp we didn't even pick.
Our leaves got super crispy on our John Golds. I got nervous about because back to my thinning mistake.
Yeah, you probably overthinned them. That's why.
we did a little
Just
over
kidding.
thinning, so the apples were actually they were huge. I remember when we dropped them off at the processor. I probably shouldn't be naming any
Right.
names that don't want to be involved, but when I dropped them off where you guys also take your fruit, the forklift driver said, "Holy, look at these bowling balls!" And I was like, oh, "Wow!" He goes, "I don't know if we're going to be able to slice these." And I was like, "Well, whoops." But so that was a result of thinning, and then had those apples having too much space to grow. So,
Yep.
and then we kind of were trying to fight that by not irrigating, even though we had irrigation, trying to run a little deficit irrigation program on them. And it was just so hot that it just
Yeah.
When
It
they
did
got
make a
that big,
difference.
did you have any bitter pit problems?
Oh
Did you
yeah,
see?
there were definitely some bitter pit problems, but
From the bigger apples, though? 'Cause
yeah,
I've heard
just from
that
the
if
big
you let them
apples.
get too
Yeah.
big. bitter
yeah, they
pit
were.
is
I mean,
more
they were huge.
Right.
They were huge. And then a lot of our Honeycrisp trees we tried to thin a couple different times, but really just hand picking on younger trees is really the only way to go after them. We try and still hit them with the. We don't put NAA on them because that stresses out the trees too much.
It's around
And we still had some
7.
Honeycrisp. We picked like one box and we had them and offer them up to some shareholders and just for snacks. That's
Yep.
one thing I do like about, which is new to me, which is probably normal for you guys, is when you're doing cherries, you can't just jump out of the tractor and grab a snack.
Yeah.
Because if you have too many cherries, you're going to be running to the end of the row to go
Right.
find a log to sit on.
Yes.
But apples, it's cool if you can tolerate a little more sweetness when before they're fully ripe. But you can just jump out and grab a snack or just kind of eat all day long. You don't even bring
Yep.
your lunch, and you have 4 apples during the day, and you're good.
Best thing in the morning when it's cool out and go grab a fresh Honeycrisp off the tree. Oh,
Little dew
Can't
on
beat
them.
it.
yeah. Nice and cold.
Can't beat it.
That's fantastic. Why don't we kind of share a little bit about some other guests that we might think we want to have? Why don't we allude a little bit to what's coming in the future?
Yep.
Because I think, like we mentioned before and in the intro, We want to talk to anybody and everybody that knows anything about agriculture. If you own an agribusiness company like Myrtle and Maud's, your own shop, you're a local farmer, or, I mean, we should be able to get set up in here to take a phone call, I would imagine. That shouldn't be too hard for us to do. And anyone in the industry. I know we've spoken to a couple people that are going to probably stop in and talk a little bit about their products that they do and promote. And
Yeah, it'd be
hear
nice to
their
hear
stories.
from some crop scouts, just kind of see what they're seeing in the area
It's very
Yep.
true.
at different farms. And
Yep. What kind of people are you most interested in hearing from? What's top of your?
scouts.
You
I like
you like
hearing,
the scouts?
Yeah, what other issues people are facing, and if it's coming this way, if it's not coming this way.
That's true. There's a lot of stuff that's southern that,
Yeah,
or even on like the
peninsulas.
the far side of the country too.
Yep.
Yep.
That we have very different stuff. Isn't it like out in Washington they don't have apple scab? And it's like
Yeah,
our,
you know,
it's
I
like
think
our,
I heard someone say there's
Yeah.
some state that grows apples that
Yeah,
doesn't
and
get apple scab.
It's crazy because
Yeah.
that's like the number one thing that we're.
And it's
that
probably a
fireplace.
moisture thing, right? It's got to
Oh,
be.
yeah.
It
like they
normally
control their
starts
water.
early, Yeah.
They control their water through irrigation. Where here, Mother Nature
Well,
controls
but even
a lot of
in
our water.
rain, you
Yeah.
can get. That's when your infections really happen.
Right,
after
right.
rain events.
Yeah, that's
Early on.
and that's what I'm
Yeah,
getting
it's
at,
when the
yeah.
fruit and the leaves stay wet for extended periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
At the right conditions, because too
With
cold
the
will kill
inoculum.
the inoculum, and then too hot will also have the same effect.
Yep.
But in the spring, that really lends itself to problems for us because we like to stay in that like 45 to 60-degree range, and if it rains, it takes 3/4 of the day to dry, and that's where the problems arise for sure.
And you guys aren't you normally used to starting to spray that early because apples you got to
Right.
get out and spray them earlier than you do cherry orchards.
Yep. I just wrote our apple report for our shareholders for our annual meeting here, and I was looking through the records, and we started spraying on April 1st. Last year was the first spray
Wow.
I went out
On
and did.
apples?
On apples,
Okay. I
Which
think
was-
we were in the middle of April,
which was
Yeah.
way early,
weird.
which
Yeah.
is just
Mm-hmm.
crazy because
It is
even,
crazy.
and now it's what are we April 5th right now,
Yeah.
and I haven't even tested a sprayer yet.
Right.
Nope.
And,
Right.
you
Still
know,
in the building.
You got
We'll spend a little more time later
lots of
talking.
time,
We'll spend a
depending.
little more time another day talking about like degree days and how we can use that
Oh,
to
boy.
kind of forecast.
I better get an expert in here, right?
I think
Yeah,
Tom-
because I hear
think Tom
people talk
Coronado's
about that, and I have no
professional.
idea what they're talking
It's-
about.
It's very cool.
It's very simple, but it's very confusing.
well. It's like you take the highs and the lows,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's some mathematic equation going on,
Well,
and then
I just look at the color of the fruit. Is it
Yeah.
ready to shake?
No, it's
No?
very,
No?
it's very
Okay.
cool
Right.
because it really helps you kind of get a glimpse of what the tree's doing coming out of dormancy, even though there's no change on the tree.
yeah.
And so that's really what we use it a lot. Tom does a great job putting a whole chart together, and he goes through every week and updates the temperatures. And he has a whole formula on Excel, and it kind of predicts when we're going to have bloom. So we do a lot with that, and
Nice.
when we
Yeah,
are
that's
preparing to have bees come.
Yeah.
Because when we're bringing them from Florida, if you bring them a couple days late and you only have a small window for pollination, which happens a lot, you only get certain really nice days for the bees to fly. It's important to have those on the ground at the right time, but you don't want to have them here early because they don't tolerate the cold weather very well.
When are you supposed to start getting your first truck up here?
I think Tom's first thing had us looking at end of April which is normal for bloom downstate.
For downstate?
Yeah. So we usually try and get them in like 3-4 days before. And in the past, it's been like a 1 or 2 day thing, but now we're up to like four truckloads, and they only come about one a night. So the semi pulls into the orchard, and we have a big truck and then a smaller flatbed that pulls the forklift around, and we take them off the semi and drop them right back down onto the other trucks, and we'll drive from the semis to the different spots in the orchard, so we don't move the hives multiple times because
Nice.
nobody likes their house getting picked up, shaken around, and dropped off.
Yeah.
And we always do it at night. You never want to do it during the day because they go crazy. But at
Yep.
night they crawl. That's the worst. So if like you're not zipped up, they'll crawl right under your shirt, and it'll be like 3 hours later you get stung in the back, and you're like, "What the?" There's been a bee just crawling around, and you're up in your stuff.
So you guys aren't thinking until like end of April for down there?
Yeah. Yep. And then that puts us probably, I think the last I heard was like a Mother's Day bloom up
For
here.
up here?
Which is
Kind of.
A lot more
Right.
normal than
It
what
is.
we've had, yeah.
Yes.
because I was when
Because we're normally 2.5 to 3 weeks difference
Yep.
up here from you guys down there. So
Yep. And it was funny because I was just looking back at some photos on my phone, and we were taking out a sweet cherry block down in Williamsburg here, and it was like 45 February 20th.
yeah,
Not a bit of snow on the ground, and we were pulling trees out, and it looked like it was middle of
Another
May.
early spring, right? Yeah.
It was crazy, which I'm surprised that we still had a full crop with how warm it got so fast.
Yep.
Because usually when it gets warm that quick, your trees start moving, and then you get that cold snap, and
Yep.
we're toast.
We never got the cold
nice
snap.
full moon.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Nice full moon. And
Yep.
But it did stay consistently the same temperature and just at a slow warm up, which lent itself great to having a lot of fruit for us. And I think about everybody had a lot of fruit. The problem was keeping quality fruit and keeping
Yes.
leaves on your trees.
Oh, yeah.
Because there were a
Last
lot of
year
people
was-
that didn't have any leaves on their trees early.
Yep.
Early,
Yep.
which is a leaf spot problem, which, again, we can get into a little more probably with someone who
that
knows.
soybeans don't get.
That's right. Soybeans don't have that problem. So
What do they get? They get gray mold?
White mold is
White mold.
yeah,
mold.
is a big thing.
Yeah.
Get a lot of rain, a lot of moisture at bloom time. There's some
Are they
chemicals.
self-pollinating? Or no? Or yeah.
Yep.
Okay. That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
we've had a couple fields get a little bit in it, not terrible.
Yep.
So
Nice.
If you
Is
get
that
it
like
in, you
your
try
biggest
to-
thing in them? Is that your biggest
pretty
issue with
much,
them?
and we get about the same time the Japanese beetle shows up for the sweet cherries and stuff.
Oh, those
It gets
are the
into the
worst.
beans. So,
Into the
Yeah.
beans.
but we can go in and spray them,
Yeah.
take care of it.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I know absolutely nothing about row crops, so that's why it's good we have Zach here.
I know. I like to ask him questions.
I don't know if I know much about it, but I learn as I go.
Yep.
That's farming, right?
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
Dean Velikat told me one day. He said, "Those who can't do farm," and that always had stuck with me because here I am.
Dean Belquit is one of the founders of Cherokee.
Yes. Yep.
Yep.
Dean and his brother Gene, twin brothers.
Twins.
Twin brothers. And then there's a whole bunch going on with Great Lakes Packing and our family of companies, which I'm hoping we're going to get into here on another episode. We're going to have Dean and his brother Norman, two of the 11 kids of the original Velikat group
Wow.
who started out dairy farming and eventually just started leasing land and buying land and turned into the cherry empire, I guess, as you
Yeah.
would call it,
Right.
that you see here for Cherokee, which I think is a great, cool story, which is another thing that I want to have guests on is any of the older guys that want to come tell a cool story about how their farm started and share insights from the past and stuff, because those individuals aren't going to be around forever.
Right.
It's good to have cool stories from firsthand stuff that you wish later that you knew about. But so yeah, I think this was a great first episode
Yeah, it was fun.
for us. Yeah,
Right. Yeah. For future episodes, I think it's kind of open still, right? Like who we're gonna have on and what the topic kind of
yeah,
gonna be.
it's just anything that we want to talk to. If you guys have any questions or
Suggestions?
you want to take some suggestions, you guys can put them on the comments. This should be out here in the next week or so. I'm hoping you can get it on the Pomes and Stones channel on YouTube. Should be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, except for Google, because I don't mess with droids.
Yeah.
I think with that being said, it's been great. Thanks for jumping in with me and starting this podcast thing.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It's really
Thanks for
taken
talking
off
us
here
into
Wednesday.
it.
Yeah,
know.
I know it. It's been
I never
fun.
would have thought to do this myself. So
Well, I wouldn't have done it by myself either. I was
Right.
like this. I don't know
Yeah.
how people do it. Sit in the studio and just talk by themselves for X amount of time. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I do it to a camera
Right.
for the YouTube videos, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think this is great. It's going to only get better. We're going to get some guests in here and spice up the conversations and learn more
Yep.
and
Let's learn. Let's do it.
educate, but not recommend.
yes,
No. Yeah. We're going to talk about a lot of products though, and
Yes.
performance.
Yes, we will have some sponsors
with
that are-
experience and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, because you can listen to anything people say at the shows and stuff, but
Yep.
in my experience, it's people's personal experience that almost counts more.
Yep.
Because if someone says it, the guy at the show says it mixes great in the tank, and you put it in your tank and it doesn't, you're like, well, what the?
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's water is different. There's so many different
true.
variables to
There's
everything
yes.
that I think a lot of people forget to take into effect.
It's a great place
So-
to get any great information out that those people and chemical companies want to get out information about a certain product.
Yep. We
Here
do
is
a lot of
also-
trials too.
Yep. Yeah, I'm
we-
looking forward to getting some trial material from our boy Tim.
Yeah.
He's
Right.
He's
What is it, Gatton?
Gatton, and Venue.
And you're getting some Venue Max.
Venue Max. And he talked about sending some APTA, I believe. And Tom was looking at the label and he kind of liked that.
APTA.
So I think we're going to do a lot of cool stuff. Venue it's supposed to soup up our glufosinate, right?
I can't believe you guys haven't been using Venue yet.
No, we haven't used it.
Every grape acre that I
Really?
know of, this is probably the 5th year we've been using it.
What is it, like a surfactant?
No, it's a herbicide.
Oh, it's a herbicide. Okay.
I would say it works similar to Rely
All right.
or
He
glufosinate.
said I could mix it with it. And
Yeah,
it would just,
yeah.
And it would just heat that thing right up.
It does a better job at killing woodier plants type thing.
Like a shumac, because we have a lot of nasty shumac.
I bet
in
it
our
would.
Orchard out in Empire.
I bet it
Can't
would.
Get it to kill. We got their loppers.
Right,
cut it
but
out.
remember it's only going to kill what it touches, right?
Just a burn down, not a systemic.
Yes.
Well, that's what I like about our apple orchard is you guys have both been there. It's easy to separate same variety, same conditions, north-south edge of that driveway.
Yep.
So it's a perfect farm to do some experiments like
Absolutely.
that. So I've been talking with Tim, and hopefully he comes through. He said he already has the
I tell ya.
material. He said he already has the material in his garage ready to drop
I'll-
off. But I'm hoping that his company wants to do something with Pomes and Stones, and we can get some video evidence and proof and kind of show you guys honestly, because I'm not going to promote something that's not. So I told him that. I said,
Yep.
if I'm going to do a trial, I'm going to put it online. If it works, it works. And if not,
Right.
sorry.
Yep.
Right.
But I'm not in it to just,
Trials can also get very scientific, so just make sure
very true.
you have some help because there's just a lot of data to collect.
oh, for sure.
So
For sure. Well, guys, this has been
yeah.
great.
yeah, I'm excited for digging in a little deeper on some things in the next episode.
Definitely.
This is fun. We'll
Yeah,
get
it's been
get a
great.
guest in here next week. I think our goal is going to be to have a guest probably every week almost.
Yeah.
Unless we have like a weird period where we're all free one night and we say, hey, why don't we just
Right.
Yep.
buzz down and just chat for an hour? So,
Yeah. Let's pick a topic and
we'll
dig
pick a
into it.
topic and a person and we'll see what they have to say about that.
yeah. And seriously, any suggestions people have,
Yeah,
we want to dig into what people need to know about.
absolutely.
And we all have
Absolutely.
great resources.
And where can they find you, Talon?
You can find this podcast on anywhere you get your podcast at besides Google Play. You're probably not going to do that.
We don't mess with
Spotify.
droids.
We don't mess with
Yeah.
droids. He just got off the droid game. He's back on the.
I'm still a droid
He
guy.
texted me and he said, I'm back in blue. Oh, yeah. So you can do Spotify, Apple Podcast, and these video version of this if you're listening on one of those other apps. The video version will be online at Pomes and Stones on YouTube. So you guys can catch us there, and we will see you guys next time on the Specialty Cropcast.